The first, from Taiwan, please welcome to the stage, tom60229.
This is Tom's second World Championship appearance, and he wants to make this one count with a trophy.
His opponent, hailing from the United States of America, please welcome to the stage, Fr0zen.
Fr0zen has brought an innovative lineup that many have been awed by. Will it bring him the championship?
Championship! Fr0zen versus tom60229.
I think Tom probably been playing the best out of almost everyone here.
他的牌组我也
Fr0zen's lineup is another tough one to face, so I'll just leave it at that.
Tom60229 has the same lineup as Jason Zoe, except he has Jade Druid, which I can't tell if it's worse for me or better.
The North America region has won the Worlds before, so this one has to go to Asia Pacific.
I think I'll do my best to carry NA.
I just hope the best man wins.
Fr0zen versus tom60229. Let's see what you got.
Excitement is in the air as we get underway with the grand finals of the World Championship. We've talked about how their paths have converged to this very moment, Kibler. Both these players, for many years, have been on the verge of even coming to the World Championship multiple times. tom60229, 2014, exited out in the group stages. In 2016, he was second in his region for points and stopped at the last call invitational. This year, first in points. Is he deserving of the World Championship versus Fr0zen, who took the risk of building a unique lineup?
Both of these players last year made it all the way to the last call. Both of them knocking on the door were denied, but now there is only one player in their way between them and that title, and Fr0zen already got Frost-Lich Jaina in his opening hand. We see a 9-drop kept in the opening hand. That's how important that card is to his deck.
That's right, the name of the game for Fr0zen is to survive against the Jade Onslaught until he's able to stabilize either by controlling the board so commandingly or by using Skulking Geist and destroying the infinite combos or the infinite board presence that's made from the Druid.
We see Tom off to a strong start with Jade Idol into Wild Growth with Nourish and Aya still in his hand. Ooh, that is not what Fr0zen wants to see. One of the few cheap spells in his deck ends up running into a branching path from Tom, so no draw off the Raven Familiar.
Tom does have this branching paths. And unlike those other control matchups, it's not necessarily as imperative to get your life count up versus killing the mage. If you look at how a lot of the control mages that aren't burn focused, they care so much about how tall and wide the board is. Jade Druid's very good at both.
Fr0zen does pick up a Dragon's Fury off of this second Raven Familiar. Not nearly as powerful as against perhaps the aggressive Druid decks, but still a strong card to sweep off the Jades if they do get out of control.
Now, many times we look at Nourish and we think it is a card that we want to ramp with, but then Tom doesn't have any more draw. So this is a position, Kibler. What do you think Tom needs to do?
It's definitely a tough spot for Tom here because this is a matchup that is very much about pressure and attrition. Tom needs to keep enough pressure on Fr0zen so he can't just sit back and ultimately get to Skulking Geist and Jaina and really shut everything down, turn things around on him. So without the ultimate infestation already in his hand, if he does Nourish for mana to ramp up, he does run the risk of just running out of breath. But it will be card draw for Tom, who would have drawn ultimate infestation immediately. So I'm sure he's a little sad about that choice at this point, but it would be a big risk if he were to simply ramp his mana.
Yeah, of course, had he known, completely different scenario. He would have been able to ramp. But we'll see if the mana crystals end up being a limiting factor here for tom60229 as this Jade train continues with Aya Blackball.
Fr0zen with the Medivh Valet off of Ice Barrier, able to take down Aya, but that does leave a Jade behind. And Tom, with a bit of a mana advantage still, thanks to the Wild Growth, is able to keep the pressure on here.
Yeah, and I wonder if that card draw Fr0zen ends up being one of those factors that allows Tom to build even more Jades before Fr0zen can get to that Skulking Geist. You look at Fr0zen's AoE, and it's fantastic. Dragon's Fury and Meteor, Flame Strike, all very powerful tools. But eventually, the Jays will get out of range. And, you know, one of the things about it, too, was the fact that Fr0zen plays cards like Ice Barrier, right? It increases the chances compared to the normal control lists that have bigger spells.
Yeah, well, Dragon's Fury here hits a 4, so he does not kill the Jade Behemoth. This is a big part of why Tom chose to take that attack with his 3/3 Jade. It allows a small hit off of the Dragon's Fury he knew was in Fr0zen's hand to not clear his board guaranteed.
And at the same time, Fr0zen knows that there's a chance that he hits a second ice block or you know, his Arcane Intellects with the Dragon's Fury. So he's willing to take that hit even if it didn't work out as well.
Now Tom does have a Wild Growth. He can ramp the mana up to get to Ultimate Infestation much sooner. Though he does have a hand that is... Oh, he's actually...
Look at this.
I was going to say he has a hand that is a little bit too full from the Infestation, but Tom recognizes that. He wants to cast Infestation next turn and not run the risk of potentially burning cards. So he just damages his own minion with the Spellstone, which does leave it vulnerable to the Firelink Portal from Fr0zen, but this will be Infestation time as Tom deals 5, draws 5, gains 5 armor, creates 5 Reddit threads.
Yeah, and it'll be key for him to not burn some of those really valuable cards. An Arcane Tyrant. The last draw here. Fr0zen, of course, small little acknowledgement that he wished that Tom burned a card. It would have made his life a little bit easier.
And the positioning from Tom here with his smallest minion in the middle does make the Meteor in Fr0zen's hand much less impactful, but what is impactful is Frost Lich Jaina, which is going to start to allow Fr0zen to ping down damaged minions from Tom's side of the board and allow him to convert these removal spells into threats as well. From Tom's side now, he needs to try to make minions that are frankly out of range of most of the damage-based removal in Fr0zen's deck. He is, of course, afraid of polymorphs that can take down anything individually large. So, thankfully for him, Jades do tend to go both tall and wide very well.
Yeah, it's difficult because at 3 health and above, there's so many ways for Mage to manipulate things with Blizzard, the 3 damage adjacent from the Meteors, and then Flame Strike's at 4, so there's so many breakpoints. And of course, like you said, you know, the polymorphs just to make a little 1/1 sheep. That can also get tricky. Tom's just going to try and extend to the board while reducing low health minion count. We'll see if Fr0zen will opt to go for an immediate Water Elemental or perhaps play a little bit slower.
Meteor on the 5/5 does give him a ping to create a Water Elemental on the Arcane Tyrant, so able to convert some removal on multiple minions and give himself a Water Elemental. Malfurion is a big draw for Tom, though, because that allows him to generate significant threat out of his hero power, as he can do meaningful damage rather than just one a turn. The Spellstone in his hand is also interesting because if he plays Malfurion, then hero powers for armor, he can use... Actually, the Spellstone's already upgraded once, so he actually wouldn't even have the hero power. If he plays Malfurion, he can play the Spellstone straight up for 6 damage to kill the Water Elemental and get that threat off the board. There is some risk of creating small minions that can potentially be whittled down by Fr0zen, but he does have the opportunity to potentially create the spiders, which can mitigate future possible Water Elementals preemptively from Fr0zen if he doesn't AoE them away.
And look how deep Tom is into his deck. That's so crucial for Tom to be able to get so far ahead of the Mage draws that even if the Skulking Geist comes, maybe the Jays are too big for the Mage to even overcome.
Yeah, and they are spiders for Tom here, recognizing that the 1/5s are not relevant and that having a preemptive solution to those Water Elementals is very valuable. And the Plague Lord punch to the face does put Fr0zen in a bit of a precarious situation from a life total perspective.
Yes, and one thing too for Fr0zen is to consider the threat of multiple angles. You know, we talk about branching paths and how it can be used for burst. That's 8 damage just staring at him if he lets it go. So he's going to utilize Blizzard, even though the board is not terribly imposing by itself. He's not at the most comfortable life total.
Vandal plus Endurance.
Yes, and this allows Tom to draw the Jade Idol potentially and then shuffle it in.
And there's that Jade Idol. Fr0zen still does not have Skulking Geist, so the threat of these recurrent Jades is a very big deal. Already at 6/6.
Yeah, but he needs to kill off this Blood Mage Thanos. Deny the easy ping here from Fr0zen. We know that Fr0zen has multiple ways to get that as well. Also could just collide to the 5-3, but now Fr0zen has multiple removal options yet again.
Nothing super clean to deal with most of the board. The fan roll is actually a pretty big problem for Fr0zen because it does mean that those Jade idols can just continually create both threats and the future possibility of additional Jades.
It doesn't allow him to skip the turn. Usually when you have the Jade Idol Infinites, and assuming you're going toe-to-toe with resources, Druid one turn has to skip on their final Jade Idol to shuffle it into their deck. But I don't even know if the game will progress to that point, Kim, because Fr0zen will try to get to the Skulking Geist, or Tom's going to blow him out of the water.
Fr0zen's Arcanologist will find his second copy of Ice Block. This potentially allows Dragon's Fury better chance of hitting high. He does have both of his Arcane Intellects remaining in his deck, so there could be a low damage Fury if he goes for it. Will Polymorph and Pink. He does generate another Water Element and deals a 6/6. Vandal's left up, so a Wrath and the Plague Lord ability from Tom both have both abilities. Branching Paths, Lowski's going to dig, I believe.
Yeah, just wants to draw.
Trying to find more Jade Idols. Just keep the massive minion train rolling. And there's two of them. So gigantic, larger and larger man after larger and larger man.
Fr0zen's also crucially drawn a lot of his cheaper spells. So Dragon's Fury can hit the 7 on the Flame Strike, but that's his final spell. In fact, most of Fr0zen's deck is just minions. So after Tom is done setting up his pressure here.
That's another Jade if he wants it. The 9 health Jade does get out of range of even Dragon's Fury plus ping if he hits the highest cost spell in his deck.
Oh! I see Skulking Geist.
That is Skulking Geist. That is something Fr0zen crucially needs, but is it in time? Tom has already created so many large Jades that Fr0zen now needs to ensure he can deal with what's already on the board. He has Ice Block, so he can buy time. That was the last possible turn I think Fr0zen could have drawn Skulking Geist to still have a chance in this game.
Well, here's another thing too. You know, Fr0zen is staring at 24 damage just on the board, let alone the hero power and any kind of burst coming out here. So he's going to try to see if he can stall over the course of multiple turns.
Yeah, this does mean that Tom has, I believe, just a Jade Blossom left in his deck. So he is working with everything that he will have for the rest of the game.
Tom's has 22 damage, can't even pop the Ice Block this turn. That is so crucial. And the second Branching Path being used confirmed that for Fr0zen, that Tom wouldn't have the damage.
Fr0zen has no Water Elemental. This is the life total he has to work with. The Ironwood Golem is actually pretty big here because it does mean that Fr0zen can't preemptively damage any of these minions with his minions on board to then get Dragon's Fury off to damage them.
And there's 2 Arcane Intellects, a Polymorph, and a single copy of Flame Strike. It is 1 in 4 to hit the ideal Dragon's Fury.
Arcane Intellect, only 3 damage. That is not enough to clear off almost any of these minions. It does set the Ironwood Golem into range and allow the Medivh's Valet to kill off several of these, but there's still 2 big minions left.
The sequencing from Fr0zen was also to account for the low outcome of Arcane Intellect and Polymorph, so that's why he traded his little small minion first. So even Fr0zen accounting for the bad possibilities. Now Tom, you know, Ultimate Devastation is always kind of a liability here, so that card seems kind of weak. And then his double Ogun Summons is purely just life gain at this point. That Jade Blossom is his last minion, or minion of substance, remaining.
So if Fr0zen can deal with these minions and, importantly, sustain himself against the Malfurion hero power. Because even if he can kill all of Tom's minions, if he doesn't make Water Elemental, it's possible for Tom to just punch him in the face and break his Ice Block and then kill him the following turn. So here, Tom's looking to mitigate this water elemental, which opens up the possibility of him continuing to punch face, and that's exactly what he'll do. He will punch the face with Spider Fangs and break Fr0zen's ice block with still a gigantic minion left up.
Yes, and also making it more complicated for Fr0zen to get the 1 damage icy touch and converting it to water elemental. Fr0zen picking up Polymorph here would be pretty huge.
Flame Strike is too small to kill any of these Jades. He has to ice block, because there is still the ultimate infestation remaining in Tom's hand. Fr0zen knows Tom has drawn his entire deck, so the threat of the 5 direct damage, even if it will send Tom deep into fatigue, would kill Fr0zen if he doesn't put up the ice block this turn.
What will you do, Fr0zen? After you ice block, how are you going to ensure safety?
Melts away.
Without being able to, he has to also set up to deal with the follow-up board too. Even if it's just a single Scarab that survives off spreading play, he'll die because he's at 1 life.
He does have Dirty Rat, which can get in the way of smaller minions, but yeah, Meteor plus Ice Block. He knows that no reason to bother to attack this minion. Tom is fatigued, but he can break the ice block. As you said, spreading plague. Just that Scarab alone threatens lethal damage.
Fr0zen waiting for his next draw in anticipation. Oh my goodness, he picked up an Arcane Artificer!
This sets him, this is the perfect draw.
Wow!
This from Fr0zen sets him to 8 life. He's out of range of infestation, and he pings down the Scarab to create a water elemental. I think all of a sudden, Tom is he locked out of this game?
He has to kill the Arcane Artificer, but then he's not dealing the damage necessary for the ultimate infestation, and the water elemental is going to be able to gain damage. Perhaps that fist pump was more than just happiness to see the draw, but it could be the happiness that he has sealed this game.
Tom had Fr0zen at 1 life. Both ice blocks broken. Malfurion hero power at the ready. But Arcane Artificer brings Fr0zen back into the game, and I think it is Tom who is without a way out of this.
He's thinking about maybe Fr0zen just has only minions. If he...
Oh, he
concedes!
Fr0zen with the enormous comeback takes game 1.
What a turnaround by USA's Fr0zen to barely survive the onslaught. Tom was barely unable to finish that game.
That was as close as it gets. Fr0zen drew the Skulkengeist at the last possible moment to stop the Jade Idols from just making larger and larger men. And then the Arcane Artificer, when he was at the brink of death, absolutely got him back into that game.
He had to deal with a lot of bad outcomes. That early draw from the Raven Familiar really messed up his hand economy. Then he had to deal with Dragon's Fury not hitting the optimal damage and taking way more pressure than he needed to. But Fr0zen was able to roll with the punches and just barely able to get over game number 1's obstacle.
And look at the relief on his face. He was clearly feeling very stressed about that particular game. His back was against the wall, but now it is Tom who is looking to find a reset here. He was so far ahead, and to have that victory snatched from his hands, that's got to be tough on you mentally, here in the finals of the World Championship.
That's right, because Fr0zen said he wasn't exactly sure how to even approach Tom's J-Drew. He said in the very beginning, before the series, he doesn't even know that makes him better or worse than the traditional lineup, because J-Druid against Highlander Priest can be very volatile depending on how the Priest draws. And then he has the J-Druid mirror, so that was a big win for Fr0zen.
Well, speaking of volatile, here we are in the Tempo Rogue versus Highlander Priest matchup. We have seen some powerful starts featuring Keleseth's Shadow Step throughout the weekend, as well as some clearly very powerful Highlander Priest games. But Fr0zen is playing a bit different version of Highlander Priest, as we see from Netherspite Historian in his hand. his version has some dragons.
Draws the chain in the opening hand, the most important card off the mulligan. So you have early game play. Shadowy Brand doing the second most.
The Cleric is very good here too. Against Tempo Rogue, it can give you a tool that can help deny your opponent's early game aggression.
Wow.
And give you the ability to potentially draw some extra cards. And Fr0zen to play on turn 1.
Get that mulligan from Tom. He keeps Cobalt Scalebane and Vilespine Slayer, 2 cards that are very powerful for mid-game tempo, but almost concedes the fact that he has a very low chance of getting any kind of board dominance early on.
And we see here, speaking of board dominance early on, the Northshire Cleric is really preventing Tom from being able to safely play the Swashbuckler. He'd love to play Swashbuckler, get patches out of his deck and go on the offense, but if he does, that Cleric will just start feeding Fr0zen cards as he heals them.
That's right, Patch is a liability.
No dragon drawn for Fr0zen, so the Historian is waiting for some new history to be made.
That's right. Tom, of course, waiting for some way to snipe that Northshire Cleric very easily. But at the same time, we've seen Temple Rogues take it very slow against the Highlander Priest, primarily because if they're so happy to take the board early, and they overextend, and Priest clears it once or twice, then Rogue has no more cards. And that's where cards like Evil Minstrel really come into play.
I actually had a chance to talk to Fr0zen before the match, and he mentioned that Tom's version of Tempo Rogue he felt would be easier for him to beat because there is only a single copy of that Elder Minstrel.
Wow.
And here Fr0zen, with a kind of an amusing play, smiting his own Cleric.
Right.
He decides, okay, well, this smite is less important than the possibility to find the more powerful cards in my deck.
Yes.
Decides to just cash it in for a card here.
Yeah, it's essentially just 1 mana draw card for Fr0zen. He's okay with that because Holy Smite doesn't seem like it'll do much right now.
Tom has gone a bit wider here.
He's setting. It looks like he's setting up for a very powerful Cobalt Scalebane to have multiple targets. Not only is it a dragon and a lot of stats, but it'll set a minion's attack to 4, assuming all these 1/1 survive.
This also means that even if Fr0zen attacks into one of these minions and heals up his Cleric, he will still have 3 points of power attacking the board between the 2 pirates and the weapon that he has set up.
It's true. He does have the flexibility of even playing Saradak Chain-Gang. But look at what Fr0zen's been able to pick up. It's a Potion of Madness.
The Power Word Shield gets the Cleric out of range, and Potion of Madness can allow him to clear off both of these minions, which makes even a South Sea Captain draw for Tom not allow him to present any meaningful threat.
And now he's able to hold on to Circle of Healing in case he needs to use that for later. And again, emphasizing how important it is to be 1 card deeper into your deck. Because now, losing the Holy Smite doesn't seem that bad of an idea whatsoever.
Not at all. And Tom here, we see a little bit kind of exasperation perhaps crossed over his face. He has the ability to coin out either the Vilespine or the Cobalt Scalebane that he did keep. The Scalebane is very powerful against Fr0zen's deck. There's only really the Shadow Word Death that can take it down easily. But Tom decides that he wants to ensure no more card draw for Fr0zen. Perhaps a good decision since we see the Circle plus Wild Pyromancer waiting for Fr0zen's hand, but it's Raza time.
Wow, the Tempo Vilespine, or sorry, the Vilespine's tempo is not very good, but he has double Shadow Step, which makes Vilespine's ability to get crazy value very strong against Priest. But here's the thing, Tom's not really shoving that much damage. A lot of time when you're playing Vilespine in this position, you want to hit with a second minion, so you can pressure your opponent and continue to stack advantage on the board. That's a great move, but Tom doesn't have much to follow up.
Tom could have played Cobalt Scalebane that turn and attacked the face, which would have buffed his Vilespine up such that there was no trade option available to Fr0zen. That could potentially run into a silence, but it could be a problem. But Fr0zen here with Kazakis, Ichor of Undeath as a 1 here has to be kind of attractive since he does have Raza as well as Cleric in his pool, though the fact that he did Potion of Madness to Patches does add another small minion that could potentially be resurrected and not work out for him quite as well.
It is worth noting that that is why you want to take Patches if you are a Priest with Potion of Madness, because if you do resurrect it, at least it's a 1 damage charge as opposed to a 1 damage do nothing. Or one mana minion that does nothing.
All right, well, Tom Picks up a Bone Mare, but only 6th mana this turn. He does have some potential trades on either of these minions, and a number of options of how to spend the rest of his mana.
Gotta imagine the Pyromancer is very threatening.
How long can this go on? How long can this go on?
Yeah, I love these preemptive attacks.
Yeah, this is something we see a number of the players do over the course of Worlds this weekend. Gives them the ability to ensure that even if Fr0zen heals it, it'll be down, if it attacks into something, it'll be down to 1 life. Ooh, Kazaku's potion time. With a Auctioneer, gonna draw quite a bit from Fr0zen.
Oh my goodness!
Oh dear, he finds the Cleric. Draws 2 cards off the circle, 1 card off the Auctioneer. Fr0zen is drawing yet another here with the Raza Hero Power. He's just drawing his deck.
That is the key for Fr0zen to unlock his deck's potential, his card draw. And there was actually multiple options there, but given how the circumstances played out, and because Fr0zen's able to keep that circle of healing by drawing with that Holy Smite, he now has opened up a world of possibilities.
Fr0zen has 9 cards in his hand. Still has not found Shadow Reaper Anduin, but he has a wealth of options available to him. And frankly, Tom needs to deal with his board.
So many options.
The Auctioneer from Fr0zen here has to die. There's no way Tom can possibly allow that to live and hope to win the game.
And the Auctioneer tech is paying off dividends. A lot of people choose Lyra the Sunshard, but Fr0zen even set up that path too. Remember, Kazakus often choose the 5-mana potion so you can draw 2 and a lot of value. But he took the 1-mana potion knowing that he has Gadget's Hand Auctioneer in the hand. He's going to go for a big swing.
Swing turns Tom is looking for here.
Yes.
Develops a pretty big board, debating if he wants to add a quarter of 3 for 2 for 3. I think he's afraid of Anduin,
Yeah.
afraid of Dragonfire Potion.
I would be. My opponent just drew 5 cards last turn.
Nether's been story could find a Duskbreaker here. These are all pretty attractive too.
Yeah, the Malygos is certainly interesting, but I think it's a little bit too much mana. And then a Dragonlord Operative is the most tempo and value.
And the Bookworm here, allowing him to take down the Vile Spines, gives him the most immediate impact on the board.
That's true. You know, trying to limit your opponent's Bone Mirror opportunity is also pretty valuable.
There does come down. Fr0zen can clear the buff Chain Gang with his board if he chooses. He also has Silence, which will allow him to keep the Kazakus around. Just a lot of options.
Fr0zen has draw opportunities here, either through his Novice or his Acolyte.
Looks like he's thinking about Acolyte plus Spirit Lash.
I wonder.
Spirit Lash allows him to clear the minion with his Kazakus, but then I'm wondering what he's going to do with his other remaining 4 mana. Probably possibly play the Twilight Drake at that moment.
It's the sort of hand where you just have so many possibilities that it's a lot to calculate. Fr0zen been doing a lot of calculating all weekend.
And you see that Tom's holding on to 1 card from the very beginning of the game for a long time. So I wonder what he's also reading. We've established that Fr0zen is a big hand reader.
SI agent, so that can continue to help with his tempo plan.
I hope you like my invention.
Rope is burning though. Fr0zen needs to figure out exactly how he's going to navigate the rest of his turn. And it will just be adding swings to the board and taking down the buff Chain Gang.
Twilight Drake is the only dragon remaining, but Fr0zen has a 4/12 on the board, and the Vile Spine already got double Shadow Step, so I think in Fr0zen's mind, it's like, well, does he have another Vile Spine in his hand? Unlikely.
That he does, though.
Yeah, he's going to get some bad news. This is a big swing turn here from Tom.
Yeah, it will absolutely pick apart Fr0zen's board.
Right.
But thanks to all that card draw, Fr0zen does have that Dragonfire Potion he just drew, so he will be able to clear this off quite easily.
Yeah, very big difference of whether or not this Dragonfire Potion lands. Fr0zen gonna hesitate. Don't immediately snap call if you don't have to. Think if you can even conserve your resources.
He does have even just Velen Spirit Lash if he wanted to go for that, but that wouldn't clear up everything, and it is just such a clean clear with the Dragonfire Potion. Fr0zen can even go on offense with the SI agent.
This guy's toast.
And And crucially, the more damage he can get onto Tom, and the more he can reduce his life total before he even gets to the stage of the game where he plays Anduin, the less hero powers he has to do to burn him down.
Yeah, Tom is playing very conservative with his resources, trying to extend the length of this game. Now he's starting to sense that Fr0zen doesn't have the Anduin because he would have had multiple chances to do.
Only 8 cards left in the deck, and there's the Shadow Reaper. Right on time to take care of Bone Mare. The crowd loves it. And Tom does not. He concedes. Fr0zen is up 2-0.
One more win is all that separates Fr0zen and immortality. As we will find out what will happen in Game 3, the USA fans are chanting. Fans and friends have flown across thousands of miles and kilometers. Cheer on their favorite player, Tom, right now. On the other end, you gotta wonder, what can he do right now as he's down in the dumps?
It is tough, and I believe he knew coming in that Fr0zen's lineup was a tough one for him, but I think that he hoped to be doing better than this. Down 0-2, he cannot stand to lose one more game.
Here's the thing, those were two matchups that are very favored for Fr0zen on paper. You look at the Big Spell Mage with the Sculpted Guy's tech, great against Jade Druid if it's able to line up its game plan. Highlander Priest with all of its removals against Tempo Rogue, especially because Tom's Tempo Rogue only has one Elven Minstrel, so he's definitely on the less greedier side. Or greedier, depending on how you want to look at it. And that even favors Fr0zen. So now we come to Fr0zen's last remaining deck. Can he win with his Jade Druid?
Fr0zen does have a very
that is a sign of things to come. We haven't had a champion yet, but if you stick around long enough, you'll get to see that come down in full force.
Well, we are perhaps one game away from seeing a new Hearthstone World Champion. Fr0zen only needs to win with his Jade Druid. And as we've said, Fr0zen has a very unusual lineup in general. Even his Jade Druid deck is a bit different than most. His Jade Druid deck is focused around Violent Teacher, which allows him to take a much more aggressive stance in matchups against control decks. It also allows him to go wide with minions against Tempo Rogue, and that's one of the crucial differences. I feel like it's much stronger in that matchup.
That's right. And by already banning the Cube Warlock, Jade Druid doesn't have that many weaknesses. Tempo Rogue is one of them. But he has a Jade Druid Mirror, and he has a Highlander Priest matchup. And if Tom wants to reverse sweep, he's going to beat the Jade Druid 3 times. Just one expansion to go. In Knights of the Frozen Throne, Jade Druid was the public enemy #1. And Tom could play a hero to all the time travelers out there if he can take it down 3 times, but he's going to turn to his Highlander Priest for answers.
I think Fr0zen might be the hero if he just beats this Highlander Priest here, though. But Cleric is available for Tom on turn 1, which we have seen played very often in this matchup to prevent the Jades from coming down without the risk of card draw from the Priest. Fr0zen does not have, I was going to say he didn't have ramp, but he just drew a Jade Blossom. And Tom with the Glock Crawler, he's going offense. He needs to get damage in rather than just wait for the combo and burst damage, because there is a lot of armor gain available to Fr0zen.
Yep, that Northshire Cleric is a problem for Fr0zen because playing Jade Blossom means that Tom has a guaranteed weighted card draw. He can bump into it and heal. But Fr0zen kept the Nourish. That's something that I remember he was one of the first players to talk about that. He's like, you always keep Nourish in any kind of slow Druid deck. Back when Malygos Druid was popular in the Winter Championships where he qualified for the Worlds.
Tom 3-0 with this Highlander Priest deck so far this weekend. He's gonna have to make it 4-0 if he wants to keep his dream of a world championship alive. This is not the first time Tom has been down 0-2 in this tournament before, though. He swept against Doc Pone after he was at a deficit. He came back and had that reverse sweep. Can he do it again?
Yeah, the difference between back then and now is that the stakes have never been higher. Fr0zen coins out Eye of Blackpaw, has a lot of Jade Trains going, leading into Malfurion and the Pestilent. Tom picks up Shadow Reaper Anduin, so the Death Knights have been located. And Tom is drawing more and more with his Northshire Cleric. He's going to even silence and remove the Aya. This is starting to get out of control in the card draw for the Priest.
Fr0zen does have the option to drop a Behemoth or Nourish this turn. I think he is likely thinking of Nourishing to avoid that card draw coming through, but no. He just needs to get on this board here and defend himself. That damage, even just from the small minions, does add up. Circle of Healing does offer quite a bit of potential card draw for Tom if he wants to cash it in. But those Jades are starting to get bigger here. So he's going to have to figure out how to deal with Fr0zen's offense as well. Hit Circle draws 2 cards for Tom. Shadow Vision is going to give us more options. Shadow Repaint is a great way to deal with that Behemoth.
Blessed be this funnel cake.
And the march of the tiny minions continues.
Yeah, and this little chip damage is starting to be relevant in my opinion. Like 22 is significant just from a Northside Cleric and a Glock Crawler. And still, Fr0zen doesn't have a way to stop the card draw. This Northside Cleric is single-handedly drawing half of Tom's deck.
Fr0zen debating Malfurion. One of the more important cards of the matchup just in terms of getting that armor total up. I have said many times throughout the weekend that I always feel so smart, and I feel like players are so smart whenever they make spiders here. And I think spiders may be what Fr0zen is looking for, since he certainly does not want to just make minions that Tom can attack into. There they are, the poisonous spiders.
No Potion of Madness.
But there is a Shadow Vision if Tom wants to dig for one.
Count 6 spells in the Priest's arsenal.
That cuts one down. Shadow Visions finds Potion.
Wow!
Those spiders are done for.
And Tom with the proper draw. You don't know if that Holy might end up being the difference maker there, but it certainly improved his probability. Tom is firing on all cannons, not rattled whatsoever being down 0-2.
Fr0zen's Jades are getting bigger though. Jades lost 4-4. Swipe takes down the Cleric.
Final
Hard draw may be dealt with, but it has done a lot of damage so far. Already available, the Shadow Reaper Anduin.
Shadow Reaper Anduin, and Drew starts at 21 life.
Tom, holding on to the Anduin, does recognize the next Jades that Fr0zen will be making will be 5-5, so wants to get the removal effect of it in addition to turning into the new hero power. He's just going to keep the march of the minions going, connecting with the Priest of the Feast. Fr0zen with no armor. And as of now, no ultimate infestation. But he does have Vandrel, Jade Idol, and Nourish. He wants to get that Jade train to continue rolling.
Dirt that he's been holding for so long will finally be able to be of use. And right now, Tom's tempo early on is starting to pay off huge dividends.
Near the draw for Tom. Anduin still available, would kill one Jade, but will Tom wait? Try to get more.
Yeah, he has some powerful removal in the form of Anduin and Psychic Scream. Those are his premium cards to deal with a big fat Jade board. Auctioneer to draw more cards to find Raza has to at least be somewhat appetizing here, but his follow-up is not exactly great because he only has Mind Blast as a cheap spell. Oh, wow. Psychic Scream. I wasn't anticipating music this early here, Gibbler.
I think part of the thought process behind the Psychic Scream is getting some cards that are not those Jade Idols into Tom's deck and putting him in an awkward position. All right, well, could be and win time now. No, Jason Heath and Acklin Pink come down.
Yeah, he wants more off that Shadow Reap Random because in Fr0zen's hand, he could potentially have multiple Jades because the Jade items got shuffled and he just drew with Nourish.
Well, with the Psychic Scream gone, Fr0zen has a lot of ways to just go wide in this board. Talking about the Violet Teacher build of the deck, which he just picked up.
Yes.
That can create significant threats thanks to Branching Paths, which you see 2 copies of already in Fr0zen's hand.
And also, Shadow Visions has been used. So sometimes you think about the second possibility of a Psychic Scream that's discovered with Shadow Visions, but Fr0zen has seen that possibility and can eliminate that.
Fr0zen trying to figure out how best to create threats, protect himself, and get the pressure on Tom.
So the Violet Teacher and the Spellstone was originally what I was looking at. I think the Spellstones are only upgraded one time. Actually, one of them also got upgraded, so he does have it available for him. This is interesting though. He's choosing to play even slower. Doesn't want to extend too much onto the board. And that could be one of the reasons why Tom just picked up Dragonfire Potion.
There's Raza. Tom has all the pieces now. Raza, Anduin, even Radiant Lyra. So many tools.
Yeah, we mentioned that Fr0zen has Gadget Sam but no Lyra. Tom's choosing both, and it could be a huge reason how he's going to win this game here.
It is Anduin time. Takes down the one big Jade and starts the hero powers of Fr0zen's face.
Could be, he probably was counting his damage. He has Raza for the following turn, and I mean, we've seen even the games end just solely off of that.
Fr0zen now trying to figure out, much more crucially, how to defend himself. Gonna go ahead and spreading plague.
Now, Fr0zen thinks that for the rest of this game, he's going to be ahead on board, so the most he's going to be able to ever get from the spreading plague is just a single Scarab anyways.
Kazakis, another big powerful card for Tom.
Yes. Tom has in the teens worth of damage right now. But we'll see if he's able to generate even more. He's going to look for that very crucial.
Goes for 10 mana potion. He wants big power here.
It was so fast, I didn't even see what he picked.
I didn't even see what the options were. Deal 6 to all 7 and 8/8. Okay, so Tom is looking to wipe the board that Fr0zen generates and push with another big minion.
Fr0zen's Jades are at 7/7, so that could clear all the Jades up to 8/8.
Fr0zen actually has 20 points of burst damage right now. Each of those branching paths represents +6. It looks like he's going for armor. But this is the power of being able to go wide with Fr0zen's deck. He is able to threaten these counter lethals. But he recognizes now, okay, I'm the one who's under pressure, and Branching Paths is going to have to be used for its primary focus in this matchup, which is armoring up.
Yeah. Does make you wonder, though, what if Fr0zen had the ability to stand onto the board and even pressure with more Violet Teacher tokens? I think a little bit optimistic, given that Tom had removal. But that's the kind of delicate balance you have to weigh. Do I go aggressive, or am I just going to play very defensive? And all of a sudden, Fr0zen was in kind of a critical danger zone. Now he's at 47.
Yeah, and we've talked about how powerful the armor gain can be in this matchup. Specifically, getting above 20, even 30 armor, as we've seen Fr0zen getting now. The chances of the Druid winning when a Priest gets that much armor is very, very low, but Fr0zen has no ultimate infestation. He has all those cards that were shuffled into his deck by the Psychic Scream that are keeping him from drawing Ultimate Infestation. If he doesn't find one, despite all this armor gain, he may just run out of resources.
This might be just an exhaustion game plan here from Tom. Forget trying to just kill your opponent. He has no cards. And Fr0zen